Title: The Lost High. It was supposed to be just another weekend adventure for four friends, Ethan, Ryan, Chloe, and Mia, heading out on a road trip to escape the monotonous routine of city life. The excitement in their car buzzing louder than the engine as the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky in ominous streaks of red and orange. And though the route was mostly familiar, a last-minute decision to take a shortcut Ryan had found online led them onto a narrow, overgrown highway that wasn't on any map. The asphalt cracked and overrun with weeds, the trees on either side forming eerie, tunnel-like shadows that seemed to follow their every turn. And at first, they laughed it off, blaming their imagination on the flickering of the headlights, until the GPS started malfunctioning, repeating the same turn instructions over and over, circling them in a loop where no landmarks appeared familiar. Their laughter fading into tense silence as the air grew colder and the fog rolled in thicker than any of them had seen, muffling the distant sounds of the car engine and transforming the forest around them into a labyrinth of black shapes and shifting silhouettes that seemed almost alive. And then Chloe spotted it, an abandoned gas station tucked behind a bend, its windows shattered, the rusted pumps leaning dangerously, and a sign swinging loosely in the wind with letters half missing, yet strangely illuminated by the car's headlights, tempting them with the promise of a place to stop. And despite Ethan's warning instincts, Ryan insisted they check it out, parking the car on the cracked concrete, the tires crunching over broken glass, the doors slamming with a hollow echo that immediately set the tension higher. And as they stepped inside, the smell hit them first, stale, rotting, mixed with the faint scent of something metallic, like blood, and the shadows inside seemed to move against the dim moonlight seeping through the broken windows, creating shapes that twisted and vanished the moment they looked directly at them. And in the corner, they noticed old newspapers scattered across the floor, the headlines faded but chilling. Missing travelers found dead, and vanished without a trace, dating back decades, the very air vibrating with an invisible hum that made their skin crawl. And then the first sound came, a soft, dragging noise from the back room, like something being pulled along the floor. The friends frozen in disbelief as a cold gust of air slammed the door behind them, trapping them inside. The lock clicking into place with a sinister finality, and Mia's flashlight flickered to reveal scratches along the walls, deep gouges forming shapes that resembled faces screaming silently, while distant whispers began to echo around them, growing louder with each heartbeat, words just out of comprehension, yet unmistakably calling their names. And panic setting in, Ethan tried the door, rattling the handle, but it wouldn't budge, and as the whispers intensified, the shadows seemed to converge into a single, towering figure in the far corner, indistinct but impossibly dark, radiating a presence that sucked the warmth from their bodies. And then the figure moved slowly, deliberately, gliding across the floor without a sound. And when it reached the center of the room, the temperature dropped sharply, their breath visible in thick clouds, and the friends huddled together, unable to tear their eyes away as it raised what looked like an arm, pointing directly at them. And Chloe screamed as the lights from her phone flickered violently before dying completely, plunging them into absolute darkness. The whispers now a deafening roar in their ears, a sensation of being watched from every corner of the room. And then a sudden metallic clang echoed as the back door burst open on its own, revealing a narrow hallway that had not been there before. Walls covered in old, faded bloodstains, and the floor slick with something dark, reflecting the moonlight in a way that made it impossible to see clearly. Yet despite every instinct screaming to run in the opposite direction, the friends felt an unexplainable pull toward it, as if the building itself was drawing them into its twisted interior. and one by one, they stepped forward, each step heavier than the last, the shadows stretching and contorting around them, whispering secrets of past travelers who had disappeared on this cursed highway, the air thick with fear, until the hallway opened into a vast room filled with abandoned cars, each one rusted and decayed, yet eerily intact, and inside each vehicle, they saw figures frozen in mid-movement, faces twisted in horror, eyes wide and staring, mouths open in silent screams, and the realization hit them like a punch. These were the lost travelers, trapped in some limbo between life and death, and before they could react, the doors of the cars slammed open violently, each one revealing a shadowy presence that emerged without sound, moving with impossible speed. Surrounding them, their whispers now forming coherent words. "You shouldn't have come. You belong here." And in a frantic attempt to escape, Ethan lunged for a side exit, only to find the walls extending endlessly, twisting like the corridors of a nightmare, while the shadows began closing in, solidifying into humanoid shapes, faceless yet emanating pure malice. The friends screaming, stumbling, trying to stay together, but the space seemed to distort, separating them as if the building itself was alive, feeding on their terror. And then Chloe felt a hand grip her shoulder, cold as ice, pulling her backward into darkness, the screams of her friends fading into silence, as the whispers turned into a cacophony of laughter, echoing endlessly in the abandoned station. And when Ethan finally reached the outer door, it opened to reveal the same overgrown highway, the fog thicker than before, no trace of the gas station behind him, as if it had never existed. And the GPS blinked back to life, showing the highway leading forward. But every instinct told him to turn back, yet something compelled him onward, the road stretching endlessly with shadows flickering along the edges, shapes that moved just out of sight. And Ethan knew with a sinking heart that the highway wasn't just a road, it was a trap, a sentient entity feeding on wanderers, and that the night was far from over. As the whispers continued in the wind, repeating a single chilling phrase, "You will never leave," Ethan drove on, the fog pressing against the windshield like a living wall, every mile stretching longer than the last, the road twisting and folding unnaturally beneath the car, streetlights non-existent, yet shadows flickering along the edges, as if the trees themselves were watching. And he could still hear the faint whispers, now coming from inside the car, Chloe's voice echoing desperately even though she wasn't there, repeating, "Don't leave us," over and over, making him slam his hands against the steering wheel, heart hammering, as the tires hit a patch of broken asphalt that seemed to absorb the car's weight, slowing them without any mechanical reason. And suddenly, the engine died, leaving him in absolute darkness. The only sound, the wind howling through the cracks in the windows and the occasional metallic scraping from outside, prompting Ethan to reach for the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. As if the car had become part of the cursed highway, the shadows outside coalescing into shapes that crawled along the asphalt like living ink, twisting toward him. And then he saw the figures, dozens of them, moving unnaturally fast, their faces pale and distorted, eyes hollow yet fixed directly on him. And in a panic, he turned the key again, and the engine roared to life, forcing him to accelerate blindly, tires skidding over debris that appeared out of nowhere, trees bending unnaturally as if reaching for the car, while distant laughter and the whispering chorus of lost travelers filled the air. "You belong here. You belong here." And Ethan realized the shortcut wasn't just a wrong turn, it was a portal, a thin veil between the living world and this realm of endless torment. And as he tried to focus on the road ahead, A shadow lunged at the windshield from the passenger side, slamming against the glass with a force that cracked it but left no mark on the figure. Its long, spindly fingers tapping and scraping as it tried to get in. And then the back seat moved, as if something invisible was sitting there, breathing heavily, and the air inside the car grew thick and choking, making Ethan gag. And in the rearview mirror, he saw Chloe, or what looked like her, twisted and translucent, screaming silently, eyes wide. "Wait for next part, please."